Okay, so when you're picking a bridle, I like to go with what the horse is used to. Also, the milder for therapeutic horsemanship programs is better. So one of the first things I'll pull out, a mechanical hackamore, is definitely too severe. I've seen people actually even break the nose of the horse with that. So again, you see it pulls down, pushes on that nose, and that can cause issues. So again, that's something to watch out for. Well, this simple tom thumb looks pretty mild, and the copper bit, I like the copper as it, but the shanks itself has leverage to it, so when it pulls down, it can actually crank down on the horse's mouth. When a rider pulls down, that shank gives it leverage to push down, and the brake here does too. So again, this can actually be a fairly severe bit, even though it looks fairly mild. So you do want to watch that. A typical Western bit, so this is just a curb bit, is usually solid across here, although we'll look at some other examples, like the tom thumb here. This is actually, again, the shanks can be a little strong. It has what we call a really small port, so it doesn't get up in the horse's mouth when you pull on it. So it's a little bit milder, even though it seems big. But still, same thing, I'd rather go with something even milder for a therapeutic horsemanship program. This bit right here is really mild, this O-ring snaffle, so it doesn't have the shanks, those things that are dropping off the side. It does break in the middle, but it doesn't have that leverage to really push on it. So it's a very nice mild bit. The wires up here, the twisting, this is where it gets more severe. And the sharper the wires, the more severe it gets. I do like the copper part of it. Horses like that, it keeps their mouth moist, but again, I'd watch that, okay? So this one right here has the copper. It's not real thin. If it gets really thin, it gets to the point where it might be kind of sharp on the horse, even if it has sharp edges. It does have a kind of a flattened edge here. I like that better than this ring here, because if you have a rider that really pulls hard, this can actually slip through the horse's mouth, where this edge here stops it, which that works out really good there. Again, as you're looking through here, you can see here's an example of a curb that actually has a higher port. So you see that? It also has braking through here, so it actually isn't solid. It actually mechanically moves. That means it can break down harder, and then it's got the port. So this is actually fairly severe. The length of the shank also makes it more severe. So that's the other thing to look at. You can get rollers, and that can make a horse's mouth happy. I like that. It's got some copper in it, so that's a good thing with if you're looking for it, to make a horse happy. Biggest problem with that is just the longer shank. So there's a lot of different options that you might want to look at, when you're looking for, a bit for your therapeutic horsemanship program. Okay, some other items you don't really see in different programs, and you probably wouldn't want to because you shouldn't need it. Here's like a nose band. So this goes around the horse's nose, and then you attach a strap that goes down between the horse's legs, and it keeps their head down. You see this more in running events, so you shouldn't see it in a therapy program, and hopefully wouldn't need it. You don't really want a horse bracing off of it for that type of program. What you might see though, this is a breast collar, so it goes over or in front of the horse's chest. This goes underneath their legs, and it keeps the saddle in place. So if you've got a round horse or a really heavy duty rider that maybe is pulling on the saddle and is shifting it, this will keep the saddle in place. So those are some other additional items you may or may not see in a program. And so that's something else to look for. This is what I was talking about before, the tie down. So that would attach to that nose band and then keep the horse's head down. And again, like I said, hopefully you do not see that in a therapy program. Hopefully that's not something you have to use in your program, that the horse isn't bracing against it. But the breast collar might be something you might need. Okay, so now you're looking at other therapeutic horsemanship equipment that you might need. You've got yourself a bridle, got the right bit to that bridle, and maybe some additional equipment like a breast collar or something to that extent. Well, now it's to the important part, the saddle. And guess what? With the right saddle, you can be quite successful. Not only in the show arena, if you've got a competitive therapeutic horsemanship program, but also in your program itself, making your student feel comfortable and making them successful in their riding activities. So what saddle is best for you? So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you not only some pictures of some different saddles, but also seeing the rider as they ride. So the most common one we see in a lot of our therapeutic horsemanship programs and hippotherapy programs and other equine therapy is the English saddle. So we see that quite a bit. Therapeutic riding really got started out in England many years ago and then came over here. Good part about these English saddles is the fact that they are lighter weight, so that's good for the horse, and it's good for your volunteers as they're saddling the rider up or saddling the horse up. But they're also ones where they don't cause a lot of interference. The rider can really feel the horse. So if we're not doing bareback riding, that's a great option. Probably a disadvantage, first of all, the security. I mean, there's nothing there. So it's not like a Western saddle where you have the horn or a really deep seat. But the other thing is we were looking at these hunter jumper saddles. So that's one of the first pictures we'll show you in video. You'll notice that the rider is more forward in their seat and has a shorter leg stirrup, okay? Because the goal of this is the hunter jumper is to jump fences. And so the saddle is designed to push the rider forward, and in order to jump over a fence, you're going to have shorter stirrups. And the flap on the hunter jumper saddle is really short. So you really don't want to wear or have long stirrups because it'll rub your leg. Then we'll look at another English saddle, which is your saddle seat saddle. With your saddle seat saddle, we use that especially in your gaited horses. So gaited horses, very popular in therapeutic horsemanship programs. Nice thing about that saddle, and you'll see that just the way the rider's riding that, it's a little more straight up and down. So that you're not jumping with a saddle seat horse. You're not jumping with a gaited horse typically. And you'll notice the flap on the saddle is a little bit longer, so you can have longer stirrups. So if you look at the rider and the way they're sitting, they'll almost look like they're standing with a slight bend in their knee. And of course, if you compare that to the Western saddle, so that'll be the last one we'll look at, you'll see, again, same thing. The rider is pretty much, a straight line going down their leg with a slight bend in the knee because you can have those longer stirrups. Probably the only disadvantage, a lot of your Western saddles will throw you back. So if you look at our video, we might have a rider that's slightly farther back, and that's something too that you want to be concerned about. Along with, there's not a lot of freedom of movement because it's a bulkier saddle for both the horse and the rider. So again, for your rider, you really can't feel the horse as much. The other thing, like for gaited horses, you want to be cautious about, you don't want to restrict their gaited movement. So you may need to look at a gaited horse specific Western saddle. So those are some of the things to look at, but you can see that in those videos and the pictures that were provided. But again, do your research. Think about your horse, what they're trained for, what your rider is going to do, and the program, the focus of your program. And then have fun. Once you get your saddle and your equipment, you're ready to go.